Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Iowa soccer supporters. Ben Brackett here, your Soccer Talk co-host, alongside my good buddy Blake Sievers. Sieves, what's up?
I was hoping and thinking as I was walking up the driveway to our loft, our little space, that we should do this outside. We've got to figure something out because, again, what a day.
Blake gets all jacked up when the weather's nice, don't you, Blake?
I do. How can you not?
What happens when you're a weatherman?
That's
like
true as well.
Stuff.
And judging by the weather report I saw last night,
it was just a little delayed. It's a little shout out for our weather report and our Instagram and social media. Check it out. Insta is at KIF Soccer, along with Facebook, and then Twitter is at KIF_soccer. We Blake wasn't able to be there, so I had to be the sideline reporter for the night at the Valley at Waukee Northwest game on a beautiful evening. And I was joined by I guess I don't know. So he's the admiral of analysis, the Titan tactician, and now a very excellent sideline cameraman, Matt Sahig. How are you?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
a little blurry though.
A little blurry, and we messed up the sound once, but you know what?
Well, I screwed up Aziz's interview, so sorry, Aziz. If I know you're watching this, so
Aziz is definitely listening. Aziz, we'll make it up to you sometime.
But we didn't mean to omit you and only include Carlos.
It was a technical difficulty, but it was really good seeing both the coaches last night, Carlos for Waukee and Aziz for Valley, and then obviously we saw the assistants as well, which is it's fun to see all those guys. And it was it's fun to go see a game at that stadium. It was a beautiful night, like really no complaints. And Blake was so excited he came late.
Yeah, and we talked about it last year, I think, when we went out there, or 2 years ago for the Waukee Northwest inaugural derby. But that complex is unbelievable. We have issues with places, some of them putting their lights on at night, and they lit up that entire campus. All the athletic fields and courts weren't being used, but they had them lit up, showcasing it. It was cool, I thought.
Yeah, the stadium's huge. That was my first time there last night, but the stadium's phenomenal. I mean, in fact, it's a 10-minute walk to get to your seat. It's so big from the parking lot. So pretty cool. I mean, pretty amazing facilities that those high school players have access to. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so two of the largest high schools in the state of Iowa squaring off. I hadn't been keeping track of the rankings, but they were both ranked teams, were they not? They were both undefeated at the point.
The first week, no, because Waukee lost. Northwest just lost to Johnston. So it's kind of
something
the first
I learned today.
Yeah, first week of rankings just came out. Maybe by the end of this, that's our tease, so people stay tuned to the end of the pod.
We'll rattle those off here at the end. But yeah, so pretty experienced, it seemed to me, Waukee side, as far as they had a lot of juniors and seniors in the squad. I didn't see any freshmen on the teams list, and then Valley with a little bit younger squad, really is what it looked like to me. But what'd you think, Matt? You're the one with the sharp eye.
Sure. So I think it seemed to me like it was just a couple of teams trying to figure out who they were going to be this season. Really, it's pretty early in the season, I think, to have that matchup. And in fact, if you're saying that Johnston played Waukee Northwest even before that, and now you've got I would call it's an automatic rivalry, even though Waukee Northwest is not a very old school, because the school was just built. But I mean, those are some pretty big games and some big rivalries early on in the season. So I think that just presents a challenge for all the teams early in the season, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. But I thought clearly we saw two teams that are trying to figure out who they were going to be this year. And so I've got no doubt that if they play each other in the state tournament or even later in the season, that game will look totally differently or totally different. But I think there was a little bit left to be desired for me in terms of how the teams played on both sides of the ball. And I can kind of talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah. So first half, we were actually on time for once, so that was good. And, it started, and there was some excitement, but among the players, some yelling and screaming and some running around, but there's not a lot of chances early on, a lot of, change of possession, 1-2 passes, give it away, 1-2 passes, big hard tackle. a lot of aerial balls, right? I mean, I think, sort of indicative of the beginning of a game, trying to test each other out a little bit, of two physical and, athletic teams.
Yeah, Waukee Northwest, in my opinion, likes to keep the ball, likes to pass it around, and I think that's pretty consistent with Carlos ACB teams that we've seen in the past. They're very skilled. They've got good players and good technical players, I think, at every position on the field in the first half. And really throughout the game, they struggled to move the ball from their defensive third and then get into the thirds and then into the attacking third and to create chances. And the halftime talk with Carlos was indicative of that. I think he hit the nail on the head in terms of what was to be desired in terms of their performance in the attacking end of the field in the first half. For Valley in the first half, then it was a little bit different. I thought Valley played much more direct. They've got the number 14 Knipsu, who is a handful. I think we used that word handful a couple of different times.
It's the best way to describe him
with both of these and Carlos. And so I think we saw Valley play much more direct and try and get the ball into him. Specifically, they were playing him into space too often for my preference, but that's how they were trying to create chances, and they did. I mean, they created a couple of good chances because they played direct into him, and he can, I don't know if this is a good phrase, but out athlete, I think, anyone on that field.
Yeah,
he's 6'3" or 6'4", lean, fast, and strong.
Yeah, as a bigger defender, I would not have enjoyed dealing with him. And I thought, you mentioned Carlos's halftime talk. Aziz also made a really good point about Knipsu, just that he maybe needs to kind of hold the space up a little bit more, get the ball at his feet, and not as many flicks and tricks and more just simple stuff, control it, bring other people into the game. And I think that was what I saw a lot of, like for Valley, is there was a there was a presence at the center up top, but there wasn't a lot of strong presence underneath him to pick up the ball, second balls, or pick up the stuff that he was going to knock down. Yeah, and the reason for that, in my opinion, is that it's kind of similar to a lot of the games that we watch. I feel like it's just how the high schoolers play or kids play in general, but he runs too much. Again, he's the center forward. He's the number 9. And so anytime he got the ball, he was on the run. I can't think of a time where he received the ball at his feet. And that's because his runs are running into the channel, or they're starting in the channel and running in behind. And so all of his runs prompt a pass into space. And so he's going to create a couple of chances a game, but to me, he's going to get tired. He's going to get inefficient. And like you said, then, because he's not standing still and he's running away, what's happening is that Valley can't get their midfielders to join in the game. So I think what Knipsu would really help them is when they look to play him long, stand on the second last defender, post up against him, maybe even get beyond him, and allow your midfielders just to, or even the left back or right back, whoever it is, to drive a ball into his feet, hold it up, and then bring players into the game with you, midfielders. It's going to do a number of different things. Number one, it's going to conserve his energy. Number two, it's going to bring defenders forward, which means he can get the second ball into space instead of just running a track meet with that defender. And three, they're going to be able to take advantage of some of the spaces. One of the things that Carlos said in dealing with number 14 at the back is that they were conceding too much space. Again, I think he hit the nail on the head there. I snapped a couple of photos in the first half with my camera, and one of those photos was a picture of the back four Waukee Northwest, and they were at least 30 yards behind their midfielders who were square. And then right in front of the back four was number 14 Knipsu. And so what that does is he keeps them deep. And so the balls that come in are automatically giving them pressure. If they would have come up out of the field or out of the back, they would have squeezed the space a little bit. And then it also would allow them to get forward a little bit more often. Now, Valley, fortunately for Waukee Northwest, Valley didn't recognize the way Waukee was playing and how deep they were, and they failed to get into his feet. So it's on both sides of the ball. So
that, folks, is what the Titan tactician brings to the pod.
That's right.
Well, you want me to tell me Waukee, I've got some good insight for you guys. I feel like too. So I feel like I can.
Well, Oriana too. You talk about the Valley's back being able, like Oriana can strike a proper ball. Like that guy should drive the balls into Knipsu's feet
Yeah.
instead of
Well, and even some of the midfielders, the number 8, who I'm going to forget his name now.
Pablo Mendez.
Yep. And then I liked 15, Grady Watson. And they're decent little players, but if more often they could find center forward's feet, they did some good switching the point of attack and finding wide midfielders, which is always nice to see. But maybe then it needs to come in from the wide midfielder to the center forward. But getting that ball into Knipsu and having him hold the ball up, I think is just that's gonna make a whole difference for them. And I mean, you mentioned his size, and his strength, and his physicality. Like add a little technique in there to hold it up, and he's a player.
Think about how Cole Schrage matched up against him, right? Is that did I pronounce his name right? Schrage. Sorry if we pronounce your name wrong, Cole. But I mean, I thought Cole did a great job. Cole is not the athlete that Knipsu is. It's just a fact, right? He's not that. Cole's athletic, but he's not that athletic. So
the aerial balls was where Knipsu really, you could see the athleticism was a difference between the two.
Right, but Cole also, I mean, to me, matched up with him quite often, and he didn't concede a goal. Right. So he played him defensively very, very well. But Knipsu, with a couple of tweaks, would make his job much more difficult. For example, if he comes and gets the ball and gets off of him a little bit and is able to turn, now all of a sudden he's got him 1v1 and he can push it past him and use his athleticism. But that never happened.
Do you think that's why Schrage played in the back? Because I don't know if he's definitely, I didn't think, at least, he's not a center back by trade or most of the time, but he played in the back. I don't know. Is that a tactical decision by old Los? Or
I asked Ben. I said at the beginning, I said I thought he played in midfield.
I did too. Like he's an attacking player.
Yeah, right.
But maybe he did for a reason, and I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe that's why they sat a little bit deeper too. Waukee did a little bit, because it looks like the midfielders were Northwest. They were not connected with the back four, and then they were square. But I mean, again, Valley could have exploited that all game long, and they didn't, and so it just ended up being a matchup between Cole and Knipsu.
Yeah, well, I wonder sometimes too, as a center back, when you're concerned about the speed behind, and a player as a center forward doesn't want the ball at their feet anyway. The easiest thing to do as a center back is to do what Schrage and the rest of the back four did, is just drop off. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's not what Carlos wants you to do, but like if you're trying to make sure you figure it out in the first 15, 40 minutes, whatever the first half. Yeah. I know I, as a slower defender, have gotten, especially as I get older, called out on that a lot, because I would rather give sometimes a center forward who I'm like, okay, that's fine. If you don't really want it at your feet, go get it then. Otherwise, I'll just take a few steps on you. So I wonder if that, like maybe it is just like a little bit, like clever from the boys in the back.
Should we get to Northwest? Are you going to talk about the?
Well, let's talk about halftime first,
okay,
and then we'll talk about Waukee.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I thought halftime was the highlight, and then Waukee halftime was definitely the highlight, and then Waukee, makes sense to talk about them last because they ended up coming out on top. So we went down and did our halftime interviews. Great interview with Carlos, which Sehig mentioned that he kind of hit the nail on the head and had some really good points. So check out our Instagram stories. And then unfortunately we had a great interview with Aziz as well. And he made some really good points. And wish you could have heard those, but sound guy kind of messed those up. But sort of to recap Aziz's chat, we talked about Knipsu getting the ball at his feet and holding it up a little bit more. We talked about them taking their chances, which I think ends up being the difference in the game, because if you looked at the bulk of the chances in regulation, they were Tiger chances. But anyway, it was good. Yeah, I'm a little biased, I guess.
Spoken like a true Valley Tiger, right? I mean, all you want to do is
the bar.
I know. Is that trademarked? Like Tiger chances?
Yeah. Anyway, so good chat there. Saw everybody, but then we went over and did a little halftime update, and I just did a quick, like 10 seconds, and somebody in the crowd, all of a sudden we hear, "I could do better than that, bro." Yeah, exactly. And both Matt and I were facing away from the stands and kind of looked at each other and we're like, did we hear that? So I just kind of looked around, and it was clearly there was only one kid in the stands who it could have been. I just pointed at him and was like, get out of here. And he's like, his response was great. He goes, dead ass? Like, are you serious? And so we ran down and we gave him a little halftime interview. And I think we found our new Valley Tiger correspondent, right? what is it?
Shout out his Insta
Yeah,
handle.
yeah, shout out underscore pretty boy Frank. Boy is BOI. Frankie Vione. He's a freshman at Valley and an ardent Tigers supporter, I would say. But that was really fun, and hopefully he'll cover some games for us in the future. You listening, Frankie?
Here's one for you before you guys get out of the halftime talk. I don't know if you noticed this. Was there 10 minutes, I think, during halftime? And I didn't mention it last night. Horn goes off at 10 minutes. Valley wasn't even out of the locker room yet. And Northwest wasn't out of the locker room. Valley's like out on the field ready to go. And the horn sounds. And I didn't know if it was a little bit of gamesmanship or intentional or not. But it was like, man, Northwest has literally said, we're not coming out until we want to.
That's probably because we kept Carlos from his team talk.
Could have. I just thought it was interesting. Like, man, they've just kind of bullied Valley to be like, all right, you guys are done. You're waiting for us to get ready, and we're gonna slowly stroll out of halftime. So it was interesting. I don't know if I'm making more of it than there is, but
fair enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
That stadium is so big. It takes a long time to get anywhere.
It took you guys like 3 minutes to walk from your spot to the
halftime. So second half starts. As far as a lot of times in spring games like this, there's like a difference between the first half and the second half where like the weather turns or anything like that. And instead it was just stayed beautiful. There weren't a ton of chances in the second half.
No.
one big one though.
True. But not like, it wasn't like, we were talking afterwards about the Dowling Centennial game that we heard about. And it sounds like that game could have been like 8-8. Whereas this, we were going to be lucky if it ended 1-0.
Yeah.
Do you guys think some of that has to do with these guys? One, they've only played 2 games each, I think. And the two, like they're expecting to, these coaches are so old and experienced. They're thinking they're going to see each other later sometime down the road. And they're just holding them. They're not playing all their cards right now.
No.
Okay.
That's not my opinion. But
okay. As I asked.
I think they're trying to figure it out still. So one of the things, so Ben said to Carlos at halftime, hey, it looks like you guys probably need to create a couple more chances. And Carlos's response is like, well, yeah, we're not necessarily exploiting the space and getting into good positions on an attacking basis. And those thoughts were pretty similar to mine. So my observation is that Waukee Northwest really struggled to get from the back third into the middle third and then into the attacking third. And that's a real problem for them if they're going to play lots and lots of passes. So I think with a couple of tweaks I like to see just a couple of tweaks and more of it just like a shift in mentality more than anything that I think allows them to move up the field. So, for example, when their center back gets it, their number 4, number 5, let's just say plays it out to the left back. That first of all, the first pass is always looking to the left back, but that left back then isn't necessarily looking up to penetrate or play forwards. Oftentimes what happens is as it goes to the left back, then their number 6, he travels on an angle with the ball. And so the left back then plays it into the number 6. The number 6 is under pressure and also facing the left back. And the only thing he can do is go backwards or switch the point of attack out over the right back. So there's
a lot of times plays the center back. That happened a lot.
Right. So there's a couple of things that I think can be tweaked to really fix that. Number 1, as the ball travels to the left back, number 6, he's got to stop running towards the ball and on an angle. What I think the shift is you run vertically up and down the field. And the reason you do that is because you're still presenting yourself, but you're not blocking the passing lane into the striker. When he rolls over all the way to the left, he blocks the passing lane. He can't play the next, then they can't play the next one.
I was just telling my midfielders to go away.
Yep. So I don't even think it's a matter of going away. I think he can draw that person in. I just think he can't cut off the passing lane. The second problem that I think then he's got is because he does that, the left back, when he plays in the center back, just stands still. So the left back's always 20 yards behind. So what you want to think about doing if you're trying to advance the ball through the thirds, there's a very simple instruction I think you give a player when they play the ball. Very simple. So if 6 doesn't cut the passing lane off, or even if he does, that left back, when he plays it into 6, all he's got to do is follow his pass. And if he plays it in and follows his pass, he gets it back. That allows him to play the next one in. But because they're cutting off passing lanes, they're always going squaring backwards. And then the second piece to that then is because they're standing so far back, their best player, who that is Abdullah, I think is Abdullah or something like that, he's coming closer to the ball too. He's trying to get the ball. So now all of a sudden, I mean, I took another picture and their number 9 is 15 yards ahead of the Valley back 4. And meanwhile, Waukee's playing keep away at the back, but they're never advancing the ball. So I think the mentality shift for Waukee has got to be, instead of side to side, forwards, backwards, forwards, backwards. So if I got the guys in training, I think what I would do is just set up a quick exercise, put 4 guys, put a guy in the middle, have them play it in, get it back, play the next one. Play it in, play it back, play the next one.
Short, long.
And then put a condition games down where you go into the thirds of the field and say, all right, when you play it in, someone's got to advance into the next third. Or if you play it forwards, it's got to be forward followed by a backwards pass, and get them playing forwards, backwards instead of side to side, and thinking about when they make their runs and those midfielders make their runs, stop cutting off the passing lanes, because you're stopping the ball from going forward. So that's what I think Waukee Northwest could fix a little bit, or could be more effective in. And I think if they were able to move the ball up and down the field, I think that they are going to be probably a contender to repeat again this year, in my opinion, because around the field, they've got skilled players at every position.
Repeat as runners up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, at least get back to the state final.
There you go.
Yeah. They didn't win it, did they? Sorry, Coach Ward. If he's watching, because we know he's watching.
For sure.
Let's talk about the penalty really quick. That obviously that's a big point.
Yeah.
Valley won a penalty.
I would say a clear foul in the box. The only thing I would say is, like, the defender, I'm kind of going, why are you fouling him? Because he's sort of running away from the goal. That's what it looked like. But yeah, so it happens. And I think that's where you go, well, the ball never lies. It's kind of a soft penalty. And he stepped up, and I said to Blake that he didn't look super confident when he stepped up to me, and hit a nice hard low shot to the corner, but the keeper read it, and kept it 0-0.
Yep, and penalties did not come in pairs.
No, they did not last night, which was.
But we were laughing. The magic spray, the spray from the referee, guys, it was definitely out. He probably needs a new bottle or two after the last
canister.
Yeah.
I think that too, that's sort of I think as I'm listening to the conversation that we're having, center forward play and striker play or goal scorers is kind of been a theme. And I think finding those, like, that player that can just hold the ball, that scores the goals. You get Knipsey was creating all sorts of chances in the run of play, and then gets his chance from the spot and doesn't take it. And you just, it's sort of like, as a center forward, you got to be like super hungry for your goals, especially at this time of the year. When you start banging them in, it's hard to stop. So I just wondered, so far this year, I don't think we've seen like a super dominant center forward. I guess that's just something I would like to see. I like a good center forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be Waukee's center forward too if he gets the ball. He didn't get the ball.
Fair enough.
So, I mean, that guy. I mean, and to be fair to Waukee Northwest, I thought in the second half they did create some more chances. I thought 9, and then is it Mercada, number 8, maybe?
Scored the winner in overtime.
Yes.
So I thought both those guys kind of grew into the game a little bit, but they've got to touch the ball 30 more times a game, each of them. I mean, they just didn't get the ball enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, I liked number 3, JT Spalding, tricky on the ball. Looks like he's still a young guy, so could learn a little bit here and there, but certainly has some upside. What do you think, Blake?
Oh yeah, I would agree with all of your guys' thoughts there. So yeah, I mean, we haven't literally. So if you're waiting to know who won, it was 1-0 Northwest in extra time. I think off a long throw in, and then right.
Yep.
And
in that first 5 minutes. So then you've got
thrown. I wonder if they watched the pod about number 4 for Newton and maybe put a little something in the playbook.
Yeah. So a lot of times we ask at the end of these, like, sort of, where do you see these two teams at the end of the season? So assuming sub-states shake out, where do you think what do you think about Waukee Northwest?
like Matt said, they're they'll be, if they're not playing on Saturday night, I'm sure they'll be disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say without seeing Johnston, right? Because we saw Johnson last year. It's hard to say without having seen Dowling play. Dowling just got a big upset against Centennial. I haven't seen any of those guys yet play. So I would expect both these teams to get to the state tournament. I mean, if Valley can figure out Knipsu, everybody's gonna have a problem stopping that guy. And if Waukee can figure out how to put it together and start scoring goals, then everybody's got a problem with Waukee too. Northwest, that is.
Yeah, for sure. You got anything else to add, Blake?
I was just saying, so we talked about rankings. So those just came out on the boys' side. So Dowling Catholic, we mentioned it briefly, high scoring affair, knocked off. I mean, rankings are kind of funny this early, right? But Dowling is number 1, knocked off number 4 Centennial 4-3. And then currently Valley is ranked 6th, Northwest not ranked. But again, a lot of these teams have played 1, 2, 3 games.
Yeah, that's crazy that Valley can be 6th and Waukee Northwest is nowhere to be found. Although, like you said, that must be just because they haven't played.
Yeah.
You want to give us the full top 10?
Yeah, I mean, so Dowling Catholic, which I'm told we have to refer to them as not just Dowling because nobody knows they're not Catholic, but whatever. Number 1, Cedar Rapids Kennedy 2, Dubuque Senior 3, Centennial 4, Muscatine 5, Valley 6, Wayne Ward, defending 2-time state champion, Pleasant Valley 7, Bettendorf 8.
So disrespectful. They're 3-0 and they're number 7. Come on.
As the defending champ. It's all the new rankings though.
They got to be number 1, right? Until someone beats them.
I would think.
Bettendorf 8, Sioux City North 9, and then Roosevelt 1-1, number 10.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Linn-Mar's 3-1 and they're 11.
Yeah, Southeast Polk, we saw them just play 16th at 3-1. So early days.
Fair enough. Well, thank you, Matt, for your astute analysis today. We enjoyed that game. We'll be back out next week, of course. If you hadn't noticed, we're kind of doing surprise game of the week. So if you got a game next week, you never know, we might show up.
Yeah, I just Vols update bound, coaches update bound.
Yeah,
for
sure.
Just there's nothing in there from last night, which.
Yeah. And then Bound, I mean, if you guys are listening, like we need a better search function on this app. I can't find like schools and sports without trying to really hassle to figure this out.
Yeah, they need almost like a fan option, not like a homeschool.
Right. I don't want a homeschool. I just want to see all of it.
A fan option. That's a good call. Yeah, and also just keep your eyes peeled. We might be popping up on the east side of the state as well. So we're pretty excited about that. And anyway, stay tuned. Talk to you soon.